everyone, let's go over a solution to our first coding challenge. Quite a bit to get to know here. This is an interface that we can use sort of as a scratch pad as we're developing code. And we'll use this often for our coding challenges, and I'll use it to show solutions to our coding challenges. Replit is a browser-based interface that allows us to write and run Python code, but also many other programming languages are supported by Replit. So it's a really nice resource. It doesn't involve any sort of setup. You just have to make an account, and then you can use this very easily. So this is how coding challenges will usually work. I'll give you a prompt, and that prompt will be commented out. So notice the pound symbol in front of these lines of text. This is to indicate to our Python interpreter that this is not code that we want to run. In fact, this would not be compatible with Python. And I will have some code that is uncommented. So that means it is available to our Python interpreter to run and output results. So we have several test cases that we'll try when we've built the program. And I can add additional tests. So you'll see that in all of our coding challenges, I have more than one test case for us to try to make sure that our program has the correct functionality and that it is adaptable to new and different inputs. So that's what I'm attempting to do here. Okay. So in this view, I have a console and I have a script. The script is where I'm going to keep the sequence of operations that I want to run. That's how I organize the code in the order that I want it to run in and preserve all of my operations. The console is a good place to just kind of try writing code as we're developing our solution. Okay, so we are probably not so familiar with functions, and I'll go into that in a minute, but what we should be familiar with is a recent topic that we covered, which is checking whether a number is an integer multiple of another number. We looked at an example that involved checking if a number is an even number, and to do so we use something called the modulus operator. So let's take a look at the modulus operator. The modulus operator is the percent symbol, and this is how it works. Let's say I have 35 modulus 5, and I click enter after writing that. I get a 0 because what the modulus does is it tells me the remainder after dividing the first number by the second number. So the larger number being divided by the smaller number, and then what is that remainder? Okay, so 35 is an integer multiple of 5, so I get no remainder. If I were to do 35 modulus 4, I would get a remainder of 3. 32 is integer divisible by 4, and then there's a remainder of 3, obviously. Difference between 32 and 35 is 3, so that is the output. Okay, another thing I could do with this is I could write 35 modulus 5 equal 0. So the equal is a way of making a comparison to see if two terms are equivalent. Okay, if this condition is met, right? So if 35 modulus 5 is in fact equal to 0, we should get a true. So that's our Boolean value. That's a Python data type, true or false. Okay, so as you might suspect, if I were to write 35 modulus 4 equal to 0 to check for equality, I should get a false. Okay, so these operations can be built into the function, and we'll be able to run this function with different inputs to check whether or not the first number being input to the function is an integer multiple of the second number, meaning the first number could be achieved by multiplying the second number by some integer value. That's what that means. Okay, so let's clear this and start working on our function. To build a function in Python, we always start with the keyword def for defining. The next piece is to state the name of the function, and this is our choice. So I get to call this what I want. Next, I get to determine what do I want the parameters to be. So these can be anything. The way my prompt is written, it says check if a number x is an integer multiple of another number y. This could be flipped around. We could say check if y is an integer multiple of x. It doesn't really matter as long as we adhere to the order. So I could say x and then y, and then I'm going to want to remember that x represents the first value that is going to be input to the function. So here's an example value for x, and then y is going to be replaced by the second input to the function when I actually use the function. Okay, so let's build the operations, and we'll do so using these abstract terms. So x modulus y equal 0. Let's run this and see if we get anything. Okay, so I don't get anything because I need to output this result in some way. And there are two ways that I could output a value from a function. One is simply using a print statement. So we'll try that, and then I'll show you another one. So print the result of x modulus y equal to 0. That's going to give me a false, and that is the correct result for this first sample case. Okay, so that's one way. I could also use something called a return statement. So we're going to see a lot of examples, and I have a lot of explanation going over how print and return are different. And mostly it has to do with preserving the data type as a Boolean value. Okay, so if I use a return, I don't get any output when I run the function unless I include a print around the function call, because there's no longer a print inside the function itself. I took that out. So I have to explicitly call for that output so I can see it in the console. So that's what I want to see here. Okay, so in your code, you have these tests and you're welcome to manipulate them in any way you like. But I always like to give you lots of sample cases to try. So now remember, this is not going to run until I include this print function to show that output. So let's see now. This is true. I know that's correct. All right, let's try the rest of them. And this is kind of how you can approach your solutions. So let's try this one, and then let's try the last one here. And we should get, yep, false, true, true, false. These are all correct. So we have written the function accurately. Now, when you're ready to submit this to CodeGrade, you're given a template, right? And the template may have some tests there, and then there's a space where you can write your code. This highlighted portion is the only code that needs to be added to the template in CodeGrade, and then CodeGrade is going to run the auto test that I have already preloaded. Okay, so that system is already set up to check your code to make sure that it is accurate. So you can go ahead and give that a try and see how your code is running. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for diving into this first coding challenge with me.